You ever notice how betrayal doesn't knock? It just lets itself in, makes itself a drink, and sits in your favorite chair like it's always belonged there. I remember the exact moment my marriage began to unravel, not with a bang, but with a whisper. It was a late Saturday morning. I was sitting in my favorite chair, the one with the faded corduroy arms and a permanent coffee ring on the side table next to it. The house was quiet, almost suspiciously so, like it was holding its breath. My wife, Tabitha, was supposedly away on a weekend getaway. A yoga retreat, she said. Somewhere coastal, with too many smoothies and not enough cell service. She told me Thursday night with all the enthusiasm of someone announcing a trip to the dentist. Back Monday, she said, tossing her duffel into the trunk. No kiss. Just keys jangling like a warning bell. I didn't question it. Not out loud, anyway. The thing about Tabby and me, we spoke in a language of habits. Morning coffee, half-hearted kisses, polite arguments about the thermostat. Nothing dramatic. Just a slow drip of detachment. So when she said she needed space, I nodded. Gave it to her. But the thing about space? Give too much, and people start decorating it with someone else. That morning, I was lost in my third cup of lukewarm resolve when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. The mail came early. The neighbors were the quiet type. Maybe it was fate, dressed as FedEx. I opened the door to find my daughter, Susie to me, standing there in a long black coat and an expression like she'd just walked out of a courtroom. Hi, Dad, she said with a voice stretched too thin to be casual. Hi, Susie, I replied, already feeling the air thicken. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, like this wasn't just a visit, but a mission. Her boots landed heavy on the mat. She kicked them off, not looking up. I know Mom's not here, she said, eyes on the hallway. Of course she did. They talked almost daily, more like sisters than mother and daughter. I used to be her hero. Now I was just the guy who paid for her data plan. We made coffee in silence. I loaded her favorite caramel macchiato pot into the machine, a compromise from years back, one of the many small concessions in a marriage built on unspoken IOUs. So, I started, voice as stiff as my back. Your mom. Yeah, she said, finally making eye contact. I figured I'd see how you were doing. Her voice tried for soft, but the words came out brittle, like she wasn't sure if I was a wounded animal or a ticking bomb. I'm not great, I admitted. It's a lot. She nodded. She said you didn't say much about it. What's to say? I replied. She's spending 3 days with some guy from the gym. It's not a scrapbook weekend in Vermont. She told you, Susie said, as if that made it better. It's not cheating if you know about it, right? I didn't answer. Just handed her the coffee and sat down hard in my chair. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe a lot of things. But the tide was already pulling out. And anyone who knows what happens before a tsunami knows, it's not silence. It's warning. The next time I saw Tabby was Sunday evening. She walked in like she'd just been grocery shopping, not committing emotional arson somewhere off the coastline. Her suitcase bumped along behind her, wheels clicking over the threshold like a metronome counting down the beat of a lie. Hey, she said, casually tossing her keys in the bowl. Smells like pasta. That's what got me. Not the tone. Not the eyes that wouldn't meet mine. Just the absurdity of her pretending the house didn't smell like betrayal and burning garlic. Dinner's on the stove, I muttered. Didn't know what time you'd be back. She paused in the kitchen doorway, like she wanted to comment on that. Instead, she opened a bottle of wine. Her favorite. One I hadn't bought in 6 months because she said it made her sad. Guess sadness has a different bouquet when it's paired with infidelity. We sat across from each other, steam rising between us like ghosts of the marriage we used to have. The noodles were overcooked. The silence, underdone. Then she spoke. So, you know. I didn't even flinch. Yep. You're not yelling. Should I be? She twirled her fork slowly. Most men would. I tilted my head. Most men don't watch their wives pack lingerie for a yoga retreat and keep quiet. Most men don't ignore the second toothbrush vanishing from the cabinet or the gym bag that never smells like sweat. She blinked. That was the first real moment of surprise I'd seen on her face in months. Then why didn't you say anything? She asked. I stared at her. Really stared. Because I wanted to see how long it would take you to admit it. Tabitha let her fork drop with a clang. So what? This is some kind of test? No, I said. This is the report card. And that's when she laughed. Laughed. Not a villain's cackle, not a guilty chuckle. Just a short, tired laugh like someone remembering a line from a bad movie. You always make things sound like a movie, she said. So dramatic. You're mistaking dignity for drama, I told her. Easy mistake. She took a sip of wine, eyes narrowing. So now what? And I smiled. Not a real one. The kind you give when you've already made up your mind, but you're curious how the other person will spin it. Now, I said, you get to explain to Susie why her father's name is about to vanish from every return address in this house. Monday came wearing its usual disguised normalcy. Tabitha left early. She didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask where she was going. That's how we did things now. Our marriage was like one of those haunted houses that gets flipped on reality TV, polished on the outside, but still groaning with old bones in the walls. I stood in the living room for a long time that morning. Just stood there, staring at the spot where our wedding photo used to hang. It had been missing for weeks. She said she took it down to dust the frame. Sure. The room was too clean. Her throw blanket folded perfectly over the couch. Candles unlit but strategically placed. No signs of life, just curated aesthetics. And the silence? It wasn't peaceful. It was vacuum-packed. So I started packing. Not in a flurry, not angrily. Methodically. Strategically. Like a ghost removing its last fingerprints. I grabbed what was mine and nothing more. Shirts. My old boots. The baseball from the game Susie and I went back in '08. A few books. The French press she never learned how to use. My side of the closet became negative space. My nightstand drawer? Emptied in under 3 minutes. I didn't take the charger. Let her wonder why. Around noon, I took down the camera. Now, before you judge, yes, I had a camera in the living room. Installed it after we got our third package stolen. But I never turned it off, even after the packages stopped disappearing. She forgot it was there. People always do. I scrolled back to last Thursday. Hit play. There she was laughing on the couch. Not at a show. Not at her phone. At him. The guy with the jawline and the button down. Julian. Or Justin. I'd stopped keeping track. He walked in like he owned the place. She handed him a glass of wine. The one we got as a wedding gift. Crystal. Still had the tag on it until 2 months ago. They didn't kiss on camera. She wasn't that careless. But the energy between them? Undeniable. The couch shifted like old fabric remembers different hands. She touched his wrist when she laughed. That laugh I hadn't heard in years. Not around me, anyway. I didn't finish watching. Instead, I unplugged the camera and dropped it into a shoebox marked Christmas lights. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I slept in my truck. Not because I had to, just because I wanted the silence to feel honest for once. The first real crack in the illusion came not from a scream or a slammed door, but from something as innocent as confetti. It was Tuesday evening, and I'd come back to the house, not home anymore, just the house, to grab my jacket. The nights were colder now, the kind that settled into your bones if you stood still too long. Tabitha was in the kitchen when I walked in, humming. Always humming. That irritated me more than I expected. That she could hum. That she had the bandwidth to find a tune after what she'd done. She didn't turn around. Hey, she said casually, like we hadn't already buried a marriage in between 2 cabinets and a coffee table. Didn't expect you. I just need my jacket, I said. Top of the hall closet, she replied, like a concierge in her own betrayal. I opened the closet door, and that's when I saw it. Not the jacket. The confetti. Tiny gold pieces clinging to the lining. Star-shaped, glittery, the kind you see at weddings or parties that are too proud of themselves. I picked one off and held it up. Tabitha. I called out. She didn't answer right away. The humming stopped. I heard the refrigerator open, then close. What? She said, tone neutral. Where were you Saturday night? She laughed once, sharp and short. You really want to play-by-play now? I turned, confetti still between my fingers. Just humor me. She leaned on the counter. Dinner. Drinks. Friends. What kind of dinner comes with confetti? There it was. A half-second hesitation. Her eyes flicked to the speck of gold in my hand. A friend's engagement party, she said finally. Whose? Does it matter? I walked closer. You wore my jacket to another man's engagement party? No, she said too fast. Silence. Then she softened. It's not what you think. I gave a small nod. So I'm not thinking you've been running around behind my back for months? Tabitha exhaled hard, as if I were the one exhausting her. I told you. Yeah, you told me. About the gym guy. About the weekend. But you never mentioned an 8-month affair. Or a secret engagement. Her face went pale. That was the moment it shifted. The moment she realized I knew more than I should. I didn't give her time to spin it. I pulled the envelope from my back pocket and slid it across the counter. The invitation. Cream-colored. Embossed. Her name on it. And another man's. I found this on your dresser. Tabitha stared at it like it might explode. You weren't supposed to see that yet, she said, like a child caught opening presents early. Yet, I asked, when were you going to tell me? After the honeymoon? It's complicated, Dorian. No, I snapped. It's actually very simple. You're still married to me, and you're planning a wedding with someone else. She looked down, suddenly fascinated by the grout in the tiles. You've been gone a long time, Dorian. I've been right here, I said, my voice low. Fixing the sink. Remembering anniversaries you forgot. Cooking meals you didn't eat. Loving a woman who was already out the door. Tabitha's eyes finally met mine. And for the first time, I saw something real. Not guilt. Not love. Just fear. Do you love him? I asked. Yes, she whispered. That word landed like a punch with no swing. Just impact. Deep and bruising. And you never loved me? She blinked, caught off guard by the simplicity of the question. I did, she said. For a long time. I nodded again. Everything felt heavy. My jacket. The invitation. My hands. Then why didn't you fight for us? I asked. Because I knew you wouldn't, she said. You would just endure. You'd fold your socks and refill the soap dispensers and think that was enough. I turned to leave, jacket over my shoulder, heart somewhere on the floor. As I reached the door, she called out. Where are you going? I paused. Somewhere that doesn't smell like lies and lavender. And I walked out. Into the dark. Into the cold. Into the truth. The morning after the confetti incident, I stood in my truck watching the sun rise like it owed me an apology. Sleep had been a generous stranger. I got maybe 2 hours, and both were haunted by dreams where Tabitha married me again just to cheat in 4K resolution. Woke up feeling like I'd survived a car crash and then remembered. No, I just got married to someone who RSVP'd to her own engagement party behind my back. I went back into the house just after 8. Not to see her. Not to argue. I just needed a fresh shirt and the laptop I left behind. I figured she'd be gone already, maybe sipping almond lattes with Rory or researching honeymoon spots that didn't require legal monogamy. But she was home, in the bathroom, humming. Again. I moved quietly, didn't say a word as I passed the door. On her side of the sink sat the usual suspects, overpriced toner, the perfume she only wore to functions that didn't include me, and that floral makeup bag she always claimed she never used. I paused. I'd seen that bag before, years ago, wedding shower gift from her cousin. She hadn't touched it in ages. But it wasn't zipped like she usually kept it. It was half open. And something about that made me unzip it the rest of the way. There was no makeup inside. Just a phone. Not her main phone. A backup. I stood there staring at it like it was a grenade. Who hides a backup phone under a layer of expired blush and fake lashes? Answer. Someone who thinks they're smarter than their own reflection. I pressed the power button. No password. Rookie mistake. Tabby. The screen lit up, and there it was, her second life, fully documented and shamefully unsecured. Messages from him. Photos. Voice notes. One popped up first, timestamped from just a week ago. A photo of the two of them by the lake. Her leaning into him, smiling so wide you'd think he just told her they cured stress with espresso. Underneath, the caption. Can't wait till this is our everyday. Another message. He still thinks we're in a rough patch. It's like living with a ghost who makes good coffee. That one hit harder than any slap. I was the ghost. But I also made great coffee, apparently. The worst wasn't even the images. It was the audio. There was one where she whispered, I love how you listen to me, not like him. Another where she laughed in the car and said, I think he suspects something, but he's too tired to act. I listened to them all. Not because I needed proof, at this point. My heart was a collection of receipts, but because I needed clarity. I needed to hear, from her own voice, how easily I'd been dismissed. After 20 minutes of scrolling through digital wreckage, I did the only rational thing I could think of. I backed it all up. Transferred every file, every message, every delusion of her future without me into a hidden folder on a USB drive she'd never find. Encrypted it. Labeled it, winter recipes, just in case. I put the phone back exactly where I found it. Same angle. Same half-zip bag. I even dusted off the counter out of habit, muscle memory still playing the role of a devoted husband. She never knew I was in the bathroom. She never noticed the silence was sharper when I left. That evening, I watched her from across the kitchen as she made a smoothie and sang to herself, like nothing was wrong. The house smelled like strawberries and self-deception. You want one? She asked. No, thanks, I said. Not in the mood for fruit lies. She blinked. What? Nothing. I grabbed my keys. Going for a drive. Again, she asked. You've been doing that a lot lately. Yeah, I said, opening the door. Gas is cheaper than therapy. She didn't laugh. Just turned back to the blender like I hadn't just hinted at the crumbling structure of our entire marriage. I drove to the parking lot behind the old pharmacy. Sat there with the USB drive in the glove box like it was plutonium. My phone buzzed. A message. From her sister, Lorna. Just a screenshot. It was Tabitha, in a red dress, laughing into a man's shoulder. Same watch I'd seen on the backup phone. Same arms. Same smug energy. The caption? She said yes. I stared at it until the screen dimmed on its own. She said yes. While still married to me. While still sleeping in our bed. While still eating the dinners I made and asking if we needed more oat milk. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't look betrayed. I looked calm. That's when I realized something critical. She didn't just cheat on me. She miscalculated me. She thought I'd fold. Thought I'd shuffle off quietly. Let her rewrite history like I was some inconvenient footnote. But she forgot. Calm men aren't harmless. We're patient. We're observant. And when we finally act, we don't aim to win arguments. We aim to end them. It was a Thursday evening when I realized how far she'd fallen. Not in love, no. That was the easy part. No, Tabitha had fallen in something far more dangerous, performance. And she had an audience. Our 8th anniversary was coming up, which I had quietly planned to spend alone. Possibly with whiskey, certainly with silence. But Tabitha had other plans. We should do something, she said one morning, spooning granola like we were still co-stars in a sitcom. It's our anniversary, after all. I blinked. You want to celebrate our marriage? People will talk if we don't, she replied, not even pretending it was about us. So we hosted. Or rather, she hosted. Friends. Neighbors. Some couple from her book club who looked like they hadn't fought since 1997. The backyard was strung with lights. The patio table dressed like a magazine shoot. There was music. There was wine. There was enough fake joy to smother a real funeral. I kept to myself, mostly hovering by the grill with a beer in hand, and my jaw clenched so tight I could have cracked walnuts. Then came the toast. She clinked her glass, the sound too bright for a night that was already sick with irony. I just want to say, she began, glowing like betrayal was good skincare, how lucky I am to be with someone who puts up with me. Everyone laughed. And she smiled. A soft, sly smile that told me this wasn't about love. This was about branding. I mean, this man, she gestured toward me like I was a prop. He still folds his socks. Alphabetizes the spice rack. Once organized the garage during a thunderstorm just to calm down. More laughter. Louder this time. I didn't smile. She kept going. He's a little serious, sure. But he always remembers to put gas in my car. Always double-checks the locks. Always texts back. He's consistent. Maybe even predictable. But hey, some women like surprises. I like dependability. That line earned her applause. A few people glanced my way, waiting for a grin, a chuckle, a tip of the glass. I gave them nothing. She raised her wine. So here's to 8 years of knowing what to expect. They all drank to that. I didn't. The glass slipped from my hand. Not dramatically. No crash. Just a soft crack at the base as it rolled under the buffet table. No one noticed. They were too busy laughing at her punchline. At me. Afterward, I slipped out the back gate like smoke. Walked barefoot across the lawn and into the dark, where the string lights couldn't follow. She found me 20 minutes later, heels clicking like a countdown. Dorian, she said, breathless. What are you doing? Breathing, I replied. She tilted her head, mascara slightly smudged. Come back. People will notice. Let them, I said. Maybe they'll toast to that too. She softened her voice, the way you do when trying to calm a stray animal. I love you. I turned slowly. You only love me when I'm leaving. She didn't deny it. Back in the car, she tried again. You embarrassed me. I let out a laugh, hollow and sharp. You made fun of me in front of everyone we know. You were hovering, looking lost. I had to. I don't know. Lighten the mood. You could have talked to me, I said. Like a husband. Like someone you still respect. She looked away. Her silence was louder than her insults. I started the engine. Where are you going? She asked. Anywhere but here. She reached for the keys, panic finally registering. Dorian, please. Don't go. I didn't mean to humiliate you. I didn't expect you to look so hurt. I stared straight ahead. That's the problem. You didn't expect me to feel anything at all. She didn't follow me when I got out again. This time, I walked to a park bench near the florist shop, sat under a flickering streetlight, and let my thoughts settle like ash. Checked my phone. One missed message from my sister. A picture of our old dog in a party hat. Happy 8 years, you two weirdos. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Because the truth was, I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her punchline. And tonight, she told the joke to everyone. I didn't go home that night. Not because I wanted to make a point, though. I'll admit, the silence of absence makes a louder argument than any shouting match ever could. No, I stayed away because I couldn't stomach the idea of walking back into that house, that stage, where I was the unpaid extra in a performance I never agreed to join. Instead, I drove. Out past the city limits, beyond the glow of streetlights in the reach of cell towers, to a place where the road curled around the lake like a secret. I'd sat there once with Tabitha, early in our marriage, when we still talked like lovers and not litigants. Back then, we had dreams. Now I had a glove box full of USB drives and no appetite for hope. I parked on the gravel shoulder. Let the engine tick into silence. No radio. No podcast. Just me, the creaking of the cooling metal, and the kind of stillness that makes you confront who you've really become. Around 2 a.m., I tried to sleep. Didn't work. Instead, I scrolled through the messages I'd saved from her backup phone. I knew it was masochism. Knew I was picking the scab. But sometimes, the pain's the only thing that feels honest. One voice note stood out. I hate how good you smell, she whispered in the dark. He still thinks we're just in a rough patch. It's like living with a ghost who does the laundry. The ghost. That was me. The thing about ghosts is, they don't rage. They don't plead. They just linger. They watch. They remember. And eventually, they vanish. By morning, my phone was full of missed calls. 3 from her. A few from mutual friends. 1 from her sister, Lorna. People are asking questions. She's panicking. Where are you? That last one told me everything. Not, is he okay? Not, does he need help? Just, what do I tell the crowd? The fear wasn't about losing me. It was about losing the narrative. So I decided to take it from her. Quietly. Strategically. I opened a new bank account that afternoon. Transferred what I could. Canceled joint cards. Replaced passwords. Updated beneficiaries. Left just enough in the shared account to cover the utilities, because I wasn't petty. Just done. The next day, I emptied the safe deposit box and mailed everything to my brother's place 3 states over. Photos, documents, the old wedding ring she stopped wearing 2 years ago and never noticed I replaced with a replica just to see if she'd react. She didn't. And then, I disappeared. Not into the woods or into the arms of someone new. I disappeared into the kind of freedom you only feel when no one is waiting to weaponize your routine. I found a month-to-month rental in a quiet town with more cows than people and a post office that still smells like paper. Bought a cheap phone, new number, and a prepaid plan. Set up a forwarding address only for the IRS and Amazon. And I left no forwarding message. Weeks passed. I expected the avalanche. Got silence instead. Then, after almost a month, came the voicemail. I listened with one ear while eating cereal on a folding chair in my kitchen, the kind of kitchen where nothing matches and nothing needs to. Dorian, she said, her voice thin, like a tired violin string. I don't know what you're doing, but I didn't expect you to just vanish. A pause. Then softer. I thought you'd come back. I thought this was a phase. Another pause. Longer. I don't know where you are. And I guess you don't want me to. But I don't know what to tell people. That was the closest thing to an apology I ever got. And still, she couldn't say sorry. Couldn't say, I messed up, or, I hurt you. It was still about the optics. About the story. That's when I knew, with no bitterness and no hesitation, that I was done playing the role of the fallback. 2 days later, she posted a photo. I didn't see it firsthand. Lorna sent me a screenshot. Tessa. That's what Tabitha was going by now. Reinvention through rebranding. Tessa, in a sundress, sitting on a bench by the lake where we once carved our initials into an oak tree and laughed about growing old. This time, she was alone. The caption read, should have listened sooner. Regret always shows up late, wearing new clothes and hoping no one recognizes it. But I did. I recognized it immediately, because it always arrives once you've stopped waiting. Then came the breaking point. I'd almost forgotten about the old joint account. Left it alive for the automatic insurance payment on my truck. That was the mistake. One Monday, I got a fraud alert. Someone had tried to use my card at a boutique jewelry store 2 towns over. The shipping address? Our old house. She was trying to buy herself something. Or worse, trying to charge me for a wedding gift to the man she betrayed me with. That's not desperation. That's delusion. But it made one thing crystal clear. She hadn't just moved on. She tried to erase me and spin the ghost. That night, I poured a drink, sat on the porch, watched the stars no one in the city sees anymore. And I smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was gone. And I wasn't coming back. You can't truly disappear without leaving behind some kind of note. At least, that's what the movies say. And while I wasn't interested in melodrama or cliffhangers, I couldn't shake the feeling that some things needed saying, even if she never read them, even if no one ever did. So, one night in that crooked rental house with the uneven floorboards and the spider webs that refused eviction, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote, "Dear Tabitha, I won't call you Tessa. That woman doesn't exist to me. I suppose I'm writing this more for myself than for you, because there are things I need to get out of me before they calcify into bitterness. And if you ever stumble across this, fine. But don't mistake it for a love letter. This is an obituary. For what we were. For who I was with you. You once said I didn't fight for you. That I was too quiet, too safe, too predictable. Maybe that's true. But here's what you never understood. Loving you felt like walking a tightrope with no net. I couldn't afford chaos. I had to be the calm. The soft landing. The quiet presence. But you weren't looking for calm. You were chasing static. You wanted someone who made you feel alive, even if it meant killing everything that held us together. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. And now I've got what I didn't know I needed. Silence. Peace. The kind of quiet that doesn't come with emotional landmines. You always said I didn't say enough. Funny how the one letter I finally write is the one you'll never get. Goodbye, Dorian. I folded the letter, slid it into an envelope, and tucked it into the back of the notebook I'd been using to track job applications in local diners with decent coffee. I didn't plan to mail it, but I needed it to exist, like a gravestone for something only I buried. Days passed, then a week, until the text came from Lorna. She's not doing well. I know it's not your job, but she's unraveling. That was the moment I knew she'd seen the void. And the thing about voids? They don't echo. They consume. By the time I returned to the city, the air had shifted. The season had started to turn. Spring, maybe, or something that looked like it from a distance. The trees had begun their half-hearted bloom, and people were wearing optimism like light jackets, easily discarded. I didn't go to the house. I went to the lake. Sat on the bench where she took that photo, where she captioned it, "Should have listened sooner." And I waited. At first, I wasn't sure why. Maybe I was hoping for closure. Maybe I wanted her to appear and offer the apology she never thought she owed. But she didn't come. Instead, I saw a man, Rory, jogging on the trail. Alone. No ring. No Tessa. His face was taut, not with stress, but with that confused frustration men wear when they've inherited chaos they thought they could tame. He didn't see me, but I saw enough. Something had happened. Later that night, I got the call. Lorna again. She called off the engagement, she said. 2 weeks ago. She tell you why? I asked, though I already knew. She said she thought she wanted a spark, Lorna replied. But she didn't realize how much it would burn. I didn't respond. I just stared out the window at a street I no longer recognized. You're really not coming back, are you? Lorna asked. No, I said. I'm not. It didn't end with screaming. It didn't end with slamming doors or fists through drywall. We weren't those people. It ended with her standing on the porch of my rental house. Not crying. Not begging. Just standing. I found the letter, she said. The one in the notebook. I didn't ask how. I didn't ask who told her where I was. Some mysteries aren't worth solving. I didn't expect you to go, she continued. Not really. I thought you'd come back, like always. I nodded once. That was your mistake. She looked older. Not in years, but in posture. Like someone who'd finally realized the difference between being admired and being loved. Do you hate me? She asked. No, I said. I don't have the energy. A long silence. Then she said the thing I'd waited years to hear, and somehow it meant nothing. I'm sorry. I gave a tired smile. Too late, Tabitha. I know. She stepped forward, hand brushing her coat like she wanted to say more. Maybe tell me she missed me. Maybe ask for another try. But I cut her off before she could even open the door to that kind of lie. I'm not angry, I said. But I'm done. She nodded. turned, and walked back to her car without looking back. As the engine faded into the night, I stood there on the porch, hands in my pockets, staring at the space where she'd just been. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel hollow. I felt clear. Because the thing that finally broke wasn't the marriage. It was her illusion. And in breaking it, I got myself back.